Hmm. Page you manage town of Maynard. Posting of town of Maynard.
Good evening.
Hey, I'm setting up the live stream. Say hi to Mr. Ken.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely adore your, what do you call that?
What is this?
A headband.
Headband. It is so colorful. Did you happen to make that yourself?
I got it from Bippy Boppy Boo when I was at Disney World.
That makes sense. You know, I wish they made those things in my size. I have two daughters. One is 17 and the other one is almost 16. And we took them down to Disney World and they wore their dresses. You know, my older daughter's name is Aurora.
Aurora? Who does that?
Aurora. So who do you think her favorite princess was?
Sleeping Beauty.
That's right. That's right. And my other daughter's favorite princess was the Little Mermaid, Ariel.
Look, he has a headband too. Hey, Greg.
Can't see it. There you go.
Hey.
That is a gorgeous headband.
Mine is Ariel too.
Oh, it is. Well, you know, that Ariel is a really great princess to have, to like, because she is very strong and she is very smart. At least I think so. And, you know, she goes through struggles, but she knows her own mind. And you know something else I like about her? She has a dad who takes care of her.
What's his name? What's the
King Triton.
King Triton? You're right.
There you go.
Yeah.
And he takes good care of her.
How many sisters does she have? A lot.
I think she's got 3, doesn't she?
Atina. Atina is my favorite one.
Atina's her. She's got a lot. She's got like 7 or 8.
Oh, really? I just remember the singing.
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't watched it in a while, but that's one of our favorites. What else is
There you go.
You like Frozen, all that. You have a lot of favorites. There's no princess she hasn't met she doesn't like, that's for sure.
Well, this is true. So Aurora likes Sleeping Beauty.
Okay.
Haven likes Ariel, although she also liked the Barbie princesses. She likes Princess and the Pauper.
Oh.
And she had blonde hair, but she always liked the one with brown hair. In fact, she asked one time for a wig so that she could pretend that she had brown hair.
There you go. You have brown curly hair, right? All right, we have to go eat dinner. I'll be right back, Ken. I want to set up the stream.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I have to make sure I'm doing it right.
The good old days. Hey, good evening, PJ.
All right, I'll be right back.
Oh, I didn't know I was muted. Ken,
Yep.
who else is here besides you and me?
And Greg, that's it so far.
Okay, thank you.
I'll keep track and let you know when we get closer. Of course, we'll go down through the you know, as part of the opening. So
Okay, muting off.
Good evening, Tom. How are you?
Hi, everybody. I thought about getting a snappy background, but I'm not sure I'm technologically capable of producing it.
I thought your background was a snazzy background.
you're, you're very diplomatic. Jillian,
Hello. Has anyone ever noticed that all the news people or anybody on TV always has a bookcase behind them?
yeah, there is actually a site that rates those background things. So you get a score from 1 to 10. I don't know where the books rate in that, but I like the clock tower thing and the
Yeah,
sunset.
I think Ken gets a 10 for that sunset.
No,
Yeah, I
no,
agree.
I stole this from somebody. I freely admit I stole this. I saw it and I was like, man, that's going to be my background. So,
Somebody tell Greg to smile.
I'm trying to read, trying to make this live. I'm doing the
You're
best I can.
very serious.
I am very serious. I'm trying to read instructions on Facebook, and this is not my forte, but I'm almost figured it. Almost figured it out.
I think Megan left him to try his hand at Facebook.
She said she would do it for me, but she gave me instructions, and I said I can figure it out. So
Quick, text her.
I know I'm so close. It's so close.
Well, we have a quorum, but we don't have everybody yet, so we'll give it a few more minutes.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
You notice I was able to get a haircut the other day.
You did? Look at that, nice haircut. So I noticed you have a veteran's plate on your car,
I do.
and what war were you a veteran of?
I used to be a professional killer.
No, I don't believe that.
Yeah, sure. I worked for the Navy, and my job was to kill the enemy.
Oh yeah?
I failed miserably.
What was your job in the Navy?
I was the navigator and the head of the engineering department.
There you go.
You killed him with kindness, didn't you?
I'm afraid so, but I don't think my captain cared for that too much.
I'm gonna give it a few more minutes, Greg. Just let me know when we're up and going.
Hey, Jillian, I got to go down to the glass place tomorrow and see if they can help me with my glass enclosed shower. And if I go in there, can I drop your name?
Go ahead. I don't know if it'll help.
Well, I just want to be part of the gang somehow.
All right, I'm gonna have to call Megan because I can't get this to work.
It's good.
Hey, Megan, I am close. It says connect your live team to the live API. Hold on, let me put me on mute because now we're in here.
There he is.
Sorry, I'm late.
It's all right. You don't have to even admit to that because Greg's still trying to get us live streamed.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks like a beautiful setting you're in, like a screened-in porch. Love it.
Thank you. It's my backyard. I don't need one of those fancy backgrounds. I can't get them to work anyway. I see Mary Branley's husband took her chair away. I'm going to talk to Jim.
Hey, I think we're good, Ken. All right, Megan, thank you so much.
All right.
I think we should be live. Megan said she sees us. She's watching Bob right now, but yeah, we're good. So you're recording and we're live, so you're good.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate that. All right. So good evening, everybody. My name is Ken Estabrook. I'm chair of the Finance Committee, and as I call this evening's meeting of the Maynard Finance Committee to order, I'd like to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So I'm going to start with members. Jill
Yes.
and PJ,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Alana,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
All right, great. And Greg, you can hear?
Yes.
And is Mike on with us today?
He said he would try.
Yeah, I guess not yet. So, and I see that Mary Branley, you can hear me, Mary? Okay, and Lydia? Okay, good. All right, so I think we're ready to roll. Okay, let me get back to my script here. I hereby confirm that we have a quorum of members who are able to participate remotely and call the June 8th Finance Committee meeting to order at 7:08 PJ.
Thank you.
This open meeting of the Maynard Finance Committee is being conducted remotely in compliance with Governor Baker's executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law dated March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend all public gatherings, and as such, Governor's order suspends the requirement for open meeting law of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. This order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely as long as adequate alternative means of public access is provided so that the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. And the Zoom conferencing venue where we are right now is that adequate alternative means of public access. Information about participating in this or any future FinCom meeting that is conducted remotely by the video teleconference aspect of Zoom conferencing is posted on the town's website. So just go on the town's website and you'll see the Finance Committee meeting notice, and the instructions are right there on the meeting notice. Please note that ensuring public access does not necessarily mean public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment because, of course, it's a public hearing this evening. Please note that this evening's meeting is being recorded and also being live streamed via the town's Facebook page. Although we don't live stream every meeting, we live streamed last week's meeting as well as this evening's meeting because they're public hearings leading up to the Saturday's town meeting. Accordingly, please be aware that other meeting participants will be able to see and hear you, and that you take care not to screen share your computer when you're talking. Anything that you show or say will be captured by the recording. The meetings, all the materials for this evening's meeting are available on the FinCom webpage, although I'll be showing those. Just some ground rules for most topics. The initial discussion will be reserved for my fellow Finance Committee members and town staff, at the end of which I'll ask the Finance Committee members if they have any final questions, and then I will open it up to public comment. When you're not, and I'll give directions specifically how to, in just a minute, about how to ask questions. Would ask everybody to unmute their phone only when they intend to speak, and remember to mute it and your computer at all times when you're not speaking. And also, please remember to speak clearly, slowly, and in a way that helps PJ to generate accurate minutes. I think all votes this evening will be taken, will be conducted by roll call vote. So when we get to the public hearing portion, anyone who wishes to make a comment during the public hearing has 3 options for doing so. For those who are accessing Zoom via computer, there's a chat option at the bottom. I'll be reading the chat comments aloud. Would ask that they include your first and last name, preferably also your home address, so that we can take accurate minutes. Of course, this option is only available for those who have web access. Zoom also allows you to do a raise your hand option. I'd prefer the chat because that way I can read it off. But if it's a long question, it might be better to raise your hand. And that's also at the bottom. If you're the second way that you can participate, if you're calling in on a phone only, you can press star, the star key, and 9 to raise your hand, and then I will recognize you. And finally, you can email comments in advance or throughout this public hearing portion to me. My email address is, I'll post it here, Ken Estabrook at Maynard.net. Let's see if I got that. Okay, let me. All right, Ken Estabrook at townofmaynard.net. Good trick I learned from Jill last time. All right, going back to the script. So you can ask in the chat portion. If it's a long question, you can also raise your hand in Zoom. The second way, if you're calling by phone, is to use the raise your hand option, which is star 9. And the third way is to email me at kenestabrook@townofmaynard.net. And again, I'd ask you to put in the subject line a public comment, just so I'd be sure to get that. We'd like to reserve public comments to 3 minutes, although I won't be too hard on that timeline as long as everybody who wishes to comment is having the opportunity to be heard. And I think with that, we can go to the first order of business. First order of business is the minutes from our last week's meeting on June 1st. I'm going to bring those up here momentarily. Make sure I have these. Oops, wrong one. Excuse me, give me 1 second here. Here we are. Sorry about this, folks. And there we are. So let's see, I sent these out to you all. Greg, can you allow me to screen share, please? It's up in the, that's in the participant. If you go up to the participant, so if you, excuse me, if you click on participant at the bottom, it'll bring up the participant list.
Okay.
And then you should see my name. You should be able to click on my name.
Yeah. 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 I'm sorry. So I'm clicking on your name.
Is it not on there? Maybe it's down at screen share.
Okay.
If you close the, click on the bottom, sorry.
If you click on screen share, it doesn't let you do it.
And now it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Hold
So
on.
you need to enable me.
I just made you the host temporarily. So now you can try screen sharing now.
Yep, that does it. Thank you. All right. Okay, so we should see the minutes.
Good for you.
Accurate. All right, I'll shift it down here. Accurate.
That second request for transfer, sorry, this is Bob McCarthy. That's WOG Construction, W-O-G, that's correct, right? I forgot to, I couldn't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It is.
I'd make a motion to approve the June 1st minutes as written.
Okay, so Bob made the motion. Do I have a second?
Alana will second.
Alana seconds. Any corrections or further comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Jill,
Yes.
PJ,
Yes.
Tom,
I have to abstain not having been there.
Actually, you can still vote. But anyway, Peter,
Yes.
Alana,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and I also vote aye. So that's 6-0 to accept the minutes. All right. So updates. I guess the only update is Greg, I wanted to give you an opportunity as we go forward. So we've had an opportunity with to meet with the moderator the past, well, Greg's been meeting several weeks now. I met the past 2 Wednesdays relative to setup of town meeting. And so right now, the way that and Greg, please jump in to correct me if I'm wrong. So there's going to be reserved parking for the finance committee members up front. The purpose of this is so that we will be parked together in case there's any amendment or other action that requires us to get together. So I'll be posting a quorum notice, and so we'll open the meeting, but I don't expect any amendments or anything like that, but of course we never know. And so if there's an amendment or other action, then we will need to meet. So you all have given me your status relative to whether you're attending or not. And so if it changes, please let me know. But when you go in, if you drive up to the front, just inform any police officer who tries to direct you otherwise that you're on the finance committee and that you have reserved space up front. And Chief Noble and Greg, of course, are taking care of that. I think we all know that although there are 27 articles on the warrant, Dick Downey, the moderator, has organized them in such a way that we hope to have about 10 votes. Some will be by card that we put up in the air, or red meaning no and green meaning go, and meaning yes. And there will also be a card if somebody wants to have a comment, as well as people with microphones to go around in case somebody needs to speak. But this will be a unique happening in Maynard, and so I hope that everybody takes advantage of this opportunity to exercise democracy at its finest. Greg, did I miss any details that maybe I need to inform the finance committee of?
I don't think so, but what I would recommend is have, if you're just curious to see more details than just those wave tops that Ken hit on, go to the town website. So our webmaster Dave Griffin, he put a bunch of information, and really I'm scrolling through it right now. It's great, the volume of information and guidance that he gave on there, which was supplied to him from Dick Downey, the town moderator, which has been, as Ken said, the sort of outcome of multiple weeks of planning and plan changes, and trying to come up with whatever the best we can. But all that being said, who knows? Like, we're still going to show up, and there will be something that we overlooked, or something that we didn't think of ahead of time. So we'll do the best we can. But I've been encouraged about everybody really coming together and making this happen. So I think we should have a successful town meeting. I just need 75 voters to show up. So that's key. I just need 75 voters, and so yeah, try to get your neighbors to come out there.
So I would encourage you to go on and look at the instructions that have been posted. They are more complete. I guess a couple other points to emphasize. One, come early because there's likely to be lines, and so it'd be fine there. Also, as we have said numerous times, best to use the facilities before you get there. There are facilities provided, but obviously they're on not an emergency basis, but, they're on a public basis, shall we say. I guess the last thing I would say to you is I've written 3 things on my Facebook page. One, forwarding the meeting notice for this evening, but 2 others. One, forwarding the warrant and letting people know where to find that. And then also to discuss the recommendation on the Green Meadow roof. I've had a number of questions asked of me about the roof. Part of it is, obviously fairly complex topic, not least of which there are 2 articles that are looking to be passed. Plus, there is also the vote ratifying it on June 23rd. And so certainly I would encourage you to use whatever social media you have, but one easy way is to go on my webpage, which is open to everybody, and go on there and just share the notices that are there, the 2 having to do with the warrant, and then the one having to do with the warrant, and then the one having to do with the Green Meadow School roof. So easy way to do that. I guess before I turn the updates over to my fellow FinCom members, I would be remiss in not remarking on the fact that this is the second to last FinCom meeting for our good friend Bob McCarthy, who ends his 15 years with the next meeting. But since we have a few people here, I did want to recognize and acknowledge 15 years of service. I obviously haven't been on the FinCom that entire time, but the time that I have been on, I found Bob's insights to be invaluable and his service to the town in helping to inform for many years now about the critical issues that are sort of on the horizon and therefore not in immediate view, but making sure that that those got airtime. And so I'll just say thank you, Bob, for your service to the FinCom and to the town. And I know we'll miss you. I know you promised to be with us on occasion from time to time, but it won't be the same. So with that, I'll turn it over to any other Finance Committee members who have any updates or anything like that. All right.
I'll go
Hearing
first.
none.
I have to say thank you first, and I just wanted to let everybody know that if you're listening to AVM on the radio and your car goes dead, Tom Black and I will be charging $50 a jump start at the end of the meeting.
Nice.
I gotta find a way to start making some cash.
I'm with you, Bob.
All right, Tom. Moving into my next career.
I don't think you can do that while you're still on the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
I think on July 1, you could probably do that.
Yeah.
But prior to July 1, there's probably some mass general law somewhere that covers a conflict of interest.
Well, I gotta
Okay?
have something to do. Maybe I need to get into that litigation with the state. That'll be fun. All right, thank you.
So with that, I'll go on to the next order of business, which is our public hearing. So I'm going to open our public hearing. We had a public hearing last week on the warrant articles. This public hearing is on the town budget. And so I'm going to share momentarily here. And this one I actually managed to get up ahead of time. Remember to get up ahead of time. And let's see. I'm going to drive this, Bob and Jill, but if you could lead us through the discussion. So you all should see a full screen version of the public hearing slides. So I'm looking for a thumbs up from somebody. Okay,
Slideshow
good.
mode? Are you in slideshow mode? Just
I
so-
am in slideshow mode. I knew you'd ask me that, so.
Excellent.
Well,
Fantastic.
I can see it.
No, I can see
So-
it, Tom. I just wanted to make sure it was in a certain kind of mode.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
So first up's Jill. Jill, can you speak to this one?
Yes. So the Maynard Historical Society was really awesome when I came to them and I said, you know, I know there's been Maynard's gone through a pandemic back in 1918, and I asked if they had the town records from back then, particularly, you know, kind of going over the budget, and sometimes in these old town reports, it will also talk about how the town has been impacted by various things. So I thought there might be something in the records about that, sort of as a hopeful message that Maynard's been here before. This is something, you know, we've gone through a pandemic, and we've gotten through it. And of course there's difficulties, but it's something that we can face together. And, you know, David Griffin at the Maynard Historical Society came through. He scanned the old records for me from, I think, 1917 all the way to 1920, just to kind of get a lay of the land a little bit before and after the pandemic. And here it's highlighting the statistics in 1918. And there's actually a little excerpt from the document itself on the right side, talking about how, you know, the Maynard school system had been interrupted for several weeks. They closed it for the pandemic. And if you scroll through at the end of the report, it also lists the citizens of Maynard who had succumbed and died to the epidemic too. So this is, you know, kind of just a lay of the land here. So you can kind of see back in 1918, the valuation for our entire town was about $4.5 million. So if you look at today's numbers, I think it's closer to 46 or so is our total budget, 46 million. And yeah, so I mean, each year, you know, the taxes do have to go up as inflation goes up, the values go up. But everyone on the town side and the school side, you know, everyone's doing their best to make the most of the budget and the town tax money. And I think we're all working together very hard in this very, you know, uncertain time. And we're trying to do the best we can with, you know, some of the losses of revenue and the like. So.
Okay, go down to the next one if you would. Thank you, Jill. That was an incredible lot of work to get to that one slide, but it's jam-packed, and I think it's a great synopsis of, you know, the challenges that we can face and overcome as a community. So now we're going to talk about some of the things that are we're trying to do in this particular town meeting for our FY21 budget, and a little bit about beyond that, but mostly it's about the very near term. So there's a little bit of a summary here at a high level. I want to give thanks to the finance group within the town and the school committee that have come up with a balanced budget that I think is conservative, as we've talked about in many meetings. I don't think there's anybody here in this meeting that hadn't heard it before. So we'll probably go through these pretty quickly, but we're hoping not to have an enormous impact from the COVID-19, but we just can't come up with a number that we're certain about. So we're coming up with scenario plans that, you know, from, you know, worst case to about what we've already budgeted to try to figure out how to navigate through this over the course of the next few months, maybe beyond a few months. Next one. So yeah, probably already talked to some of these. Go two more down. Yeah. So conservative changes in revenue projections and in expense projections. We have, as we've said a number of times, been underfunding both capital projects and education, at least from the standpoint of level service. We've been given increases, but not enough to keep pace with all the expenses that are going up, and some of them being unfunded mandates and charter school tuition outflow, that sort of thing. Coupled with that, we believe that let's see, it's not in this one, sorry. Town and schools will be looking at these budgets and looking to keep tabs and controls on any expenses leading up to hopefully more data by October for our special town meeting. We also just want to state here that we are heavily engaged in multi-year planning more than ever before in Maynard. Greg has taken an initiative to work with the Collins Center at UMass Boston to come up with forecasting tools and also more clear guidelines and policies that will guide us, and especially new people that are taking positions on any of the stakeholder kind of groups, BOS, school committee, and others, so they can see what our intentions are and not have to learn like drinking from a fire hose every time, and basically have a little more stability and institutional knowledge on those groups encoded in some guidelines. They're not absolutes, but they certainly can help people decide how we go from year to year with modest increases most of the time. All right, next slide, I think it is. Oh, one more. Yeah, last but certainly never least, we can't pass the opportunity to talk about the critical need to focus on more revenue generation. And even though we have some good projects in town and we see the fruits of that labor in 129 Parker construction going on now, which will bring in much needed tax revenue, I think the hard thing for me to say, and I get to say as my swan song, that a lot of it is spoken for already in terms of expenses, and we're going to need to continue that kind of revenue planning and growth even after that new tax increase is baked into our budgets and 2.5% increase over that year to year. So there's more need for that on the horizon. Next. So we basically, at Peter Campbell's direction, and I thank you, Peter, for that, I think it was a really good idea, that really there's two main areas that we're talking about for this town meeting, and hopefully talking more in the future 5-year kind of planning horizon in October. But certainly in capital infrastructure projects, we have to have a staged approach to that. And as we invest something in hopefully the Green Meadow roof, as Ken alluded to earlier, we all want to make sure that people understand on the horizon, the very near horizon, are as big challenges, and in some cases more investment needed in challenges for other capital and infrastructure projects. So Chris, if you hit down arrow. The new fire station is one of them. So the current funding proposal is a debt exclusion override for approximately 15 million. And that would be bonded over the course of 20 or 30 years. If it's a 30-year bond, we're giving people the overall average residential tax bill increase per year for the term of that bond. There's an information in the appendix of these slides that shows people how that's calculated year to year. So while it's approximate, it's pretty close to, within 5% of what it will actually be for the average taxpayer. Less for a lower valuation house, more for a higher valuation house. Next. The Green Meadow School building study. So this is an initiative started a couple of years ago with a letter of intent to the MSBA, and they approved our proposal to go ahead to study what kind of renovation and or new building we could do to address the age of the Green Meadow School. The study that we would have to undertake to be sure we were ready to move forward is in the approximate range of $800,000. So with about a 50% expected match from MSBA, we are recommending from the Finance Committee to do a capital exclusion override, a 1-year $126 increase to the average tax bill, not bonded over years, just 1 year. There are other proposals for how to fund this as well. I don't know if the Board of Selectmen has taken that up, but there are needs to, I think there is one proposal on the table, for instance, to take it from general stabilization, and that of course depends on other needs for that fund relative to COVID-19. Next. The renovation of replacement itself of the school roof I'm sorry, this is the actual school renovation or replacement. I put those together. If we do a study, it's going to take anywhere from a year to 18 months, I understand, and then move into a design phase and that sort of thing. So by the time we're ready to perhaps build a new school or add on to Fowler, we're estimating somewhere in the neighborhood of a $20 to $25 million bond, because 50% again would be matched by the MSBA, and that would result in a similar number, a little bit more than the fire station, but a $280 annual average residential tax bill increase. That may be as soon as 4 or 5 years, and maybe longer. We don't really know, depending on the study. Next. Water capacity improvements to help generate and sustain the I guess I got to move I can't see all these because I have to move my pictures of you. There's a multi-year plan that's being developed through the water department and the leadership of Justin DeMarco. We've already seen some rate increases that have been suggested for FY 2021 and approved by the Board of Selectmen. And those are to cover some very near-term projects like the Well 4A behind Fowler, but there are also fairly significant filtration plant upgrades for the old Marlboro Road well site. And in order to just keep pace and have enough water capacity for the growth that we expect to have to get the revenues we need, we're going to have to continue to invest in that. So those increases are yet to be exactly determined because the designs haven't been completed, but they're significant. They're in the millions of dollar range in terms of overall costs that have to be paid out over years. Next, and finally, the Capital Planning Committee is kind of just gotten its feet under them, and then the pandemic kind of took it out a little bit more, but they'll be working to prioritize a number of other rolling stock kind of investments and other capital asset investments to either maintain and or replace. And we're looking to extend that even beyond the 5-year limit of the horizon, so that we have a real plan like most towns do to basically find out what would be the end of life kind of target for a school or a library or whatever it may be, and have a long-term plan building up to that to have funding available when the time becomes critical. All right, and the one that we think can't wait, I jumped the gun here, but this is on the warrant and is being paid for, again, as Ken alluded to, under 2 articles. We get some free cash that we can aim at this, but it doesn't cover the whole cost. It's a little over half, and that would be the $350,000 free cash from Article 1. In addition to that, we're proposing that the town approve a $300,000 debt exclusion bond for 5 years for the balance of $300,000, and that would, if you scroll down a little bit, so the total to do a flat roof, not the entire roof, but the most critical parts of the roof that need repair to extend the life of that asset, is about $650,000, and that would cost the average valuation family, single family tax bill increase of about $16 a year for those 5 years. And then of course it goes, as the bond is paid off, that comes off. These don't get added to the operating budget. Debt exclusions by definition are excluded from the overall balance of expense and revenue, but it does hit people's pocketbooks. That one, we really strongly recommend from the Finance Committee to protect the asset that we put so much money into last year. All right, not too much more. So I just wanted to point out in general that the property taxes that we're talking about, like the $16 additional, is over what will already be governed by Proposition 2.5, and then includes the new growth that goes into that. So people's average bills go up and have been going up for the past 10 years on an average of about 4% a year. So that would be the impact, is $16 plus the $313 to the FY20 tax bill goes up in that range. All right. I think that's transparency for voters to make sure they know what it means in their pocketbook. So overall, this is the other half of it, the budget picture. I think it's important to say that while we're really pretty happy with the new growth that we get, the new development growth, that's anywhere from 100,000 to, in the past couple of years, more toward 500 to 600,000 from 129. And that allows us to increase the levy beyond 2.5% and pay for a lot of incremental fixed cost improvements. It's still not really covering all we need. Next. So in most towns like Maynard, the education funding is quite high. There's lots of unfunded mandates, not just for education, but for other things, water and sewer and a number of other things as well. And with rising townwide benefits, these big budget drivers, it annually is going up much more than the 2.5%. So sooner or later, there's a reckoning, either more revenue or finding some other way to pay. So next. So we think that we'd like to talk about this much more in October, but we have worked very hard across both town and schools to come up with new smaller amounts of efficiencies and revenues, but we're kind of at the limit of being able to make big budget changes and big revenue changes, especially by just cutting. So we want people to be aware that that's causing a growing gap in our balance sheet. Next. Harder even than all of that is the fact that state aid, even with unfunded mandates, is going flat or even declining a little bit in recent years. We expect that COVID-19 won't correct that, certainly, and hopefully won't be too much worse, but we really are planning over the next few months to monitor it carefully so that we make certain that that we're prepared for using rainy day funds and other things to be able to augment without vast, radical cutting for our services. So last little, thing to ponder is that we can do this together. We have done it before, as the first slide from Jill described. We are a community that works together. I think if we stay open-minded and patient with each other, I think we're going to be able to find a way through this, but it won't be without pain. And finally, just this was in because people may have questions about Prop 2.5. I recommend that people go into the exceptions to the 2.5% increase on the tax levy, new growth being one of them, and it helps explain why people might be confused by why their average tax bill could go up higher than that. And this explains it pretty well. And I think that's it, Ken. Is there any? Yeah, and the rest of them are just appendices that we'll probably be talking about quite a bit more, we hope. But if people have looked at them or do look at them before town meeting, I think there'll be a lot of chance to work on the budget subcommittee and other forums before the October town meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob, for leading us through that discussion. Thanks to you and to Jill, you too.
And there's been a lot of discussion among subcommittee and others that's draft 10 or revision 10. It's taken a lot of input from a lot of people, and I thank all of you for that.
Yeah. Bob, do you have any last comments before we sort of do a round robin of all the committee members?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Jill, how about you? Anything from you before we continue on?
No, I mean, I've gone back and forth with Bob a couple times on the deck, so I think everything I was going to say has been in there.
Okay. Peter, how about you? You have any thoughts to add to the discussion?
I don't. I would emphasize, despite the list of capital projects there, that I think the Finance Committee is wholeheartedly in support of the roof at Green Meadow, even with that kind of longer list. So I just want to make sure that that gets noted. But otherwise, that's it.
Okay. Alana, do you have what do you have to add?
I would just say also in support of the Green Meadow article for the roof, that it is an asset worth protecting, even if we end up needing a new school in the, quote unquote short term, not like super short, but that's a town building, and it is worth money, and it is worth, when we do need to find either a different way to use it or not, it's worth protecting. So anyone who might think, well, why are we doing this if we're just looking to build a new school in a few years? Because it's our building. It's, and there have been some really good and not so good examples of the town reusing its old buildings and not. And I think we need to be better about that. We need to protect our assets and our capital. And so to anyone who would think it's not worth it because we may build a new school, that would be my response.
Okay. Tom, do you have any comments to add?
Just that I think the presentation is wonderful. And thank you, Bob. Thank you, Dr. Jillian. Professional and very clear. Thank you very much.
Okay. PJ?
Ditto, Tom.
Okay. So, much of, I guess what I would add to discussion really wouldn't be added because Bob had covered it. I guess a couple things I want to emphasize. We really need to do a better job, I think, as a town of explaining how Prop 2.5 really, if there's an expectation on people's minds that taxes are only going to go up by 2.5%, and that there's never going to be any overrides, never going to be any debt exclusions, that's just not tenable in the long term. Costs go up more than 2.5, and the original intent was, of course, to have a discussion. And I'd really like to see us, grapple with some wording and some education around that. I guess the other thing that has already been noted is that until the state passes its budget, and Greg, I'm assuming that we're nowhere close to having that done. Have you heard anything to suggest that the state is ready to?
No, I haven't heard anything. And I just read a recent post from Representative Kate Hogan that was speaking to the recent world events, but nothing. I haven't heard anything about.
Yeah. So in light of that, and of course, Craig has been keeping us informed all along. But we're not likely to have a good picture of exactly what our budget is going to be until the October special town meeting. Of course, we're setting a budget now, which I think is well balanced and talks to the priorities that the Board of Selectmen and School Committee have put together. But Bob emphasized, and I'm going to re-emphasize the importance of revenue. Not only new growth, but we have, historically, I think we as a town have always sort of collectively looked negatively at new growth. I'll just venture a personal opinion at this point. But, I remember there was a lot of talk about the apartment complex being built right next to the rail trail on Summer Street. And I've heard from several people, and my own opinion is it's a very attractive looking building and certainly adds to the town. It adds to the town in terms of tax base and adds to the town in terms of affordable housing. I really appreciate the fact that the developers working to blend a little bit more into that neighborhood. But that's the kind of revenue, kind of new growth that we're going to have. Obviously, marijuana is another thing that's coming on line at some point. In terms of capital, we have not only the Green Meadow roof, but the Green Meadow School is, as Bob was talking about. We also have the fire station, and there's a number of other things, and we're going to have to start setting money aside for these capital improvements. Both the Green Meadow roof and the Green Meadow School and the fire station have all been things that have been, sort of in our docket for a long time to come. The fire station for, a very long time. And so we're certainly going to need to come to some solution on that. The operating expenses, I think, as Bob said, we've cut about as much as we can. We're already not funding the schools, in my personal opinion. I think, in the opinion of a great many that are on this call, we are not funding the schools the way that we should, but we're funding in accordance with the resources we have. And so, of course, the solution to that is increasing our revenue. And that's an important part for us to take a look at. Stabilization funds, we're already dipping into free cash for the Green Meadow roof, cash that would have most likely gone into our stabilization funds, our savings accounts. And so we again need to be disciplined in doing that. Like Bob said, the Green Meadow roof is very important to preserve the $610,000 that we put into it last annual town meeting. And I guess the final thing I would say is I would really like us to work very aggressively with our representatives at the state level in looking at state aid. We continue to have trouble with charter schools taking an awful lot of our funding for schools. I get why we have charter schools, and I, philosophically, I'm not going to sit here and get into an argument about that. The reality is that the original concept where the state was going to reimburse, help the towns with the impact, that's not helping. And certainly, I don't think it's helping in general with many towns. It's certainly, the state is not doing what it needs to do to help out Maynard. We have $1 million more or less going out to charter schools, and that's a lot of money, and it's money that we could certainly use to our own purposes. So these are all things that we've talked about. As Bob laid out, we're going to continue to look at this both through the town budget subcommittee as well as, on each of the individual boards, the Board of Selectmen, School Committee, and the Finance Committee as we move forward. And so there'll be plenty of information once, the state numbers start coming in. So I guess with that, I will open it up to any Finance Committee members have sort of last points or anything before we open it up. All right, I'm going to sit here and check my inbox to see if there's anything in, and there's not. I am not seeing anything. Let me make sure here. Let's see here. Okay, we got some questions coming in. Make sure I'm taking these in order. Alana has offered to take any comments, anybody who's listening on Facebook, to post comments or questions to her Facebook page. I assume that that's what you're talking about, Alana, correct? Your own Facebook page as opposed to the town's?
No, I'm just watching the town one in case you
Oh, the
needed eyes
town
on
one,
it.
excuse me.
Yeah,
Okay,
just in case
so-
you needed extra eyes because
Okay,
you're watching a lot.
thank you. Thank you. So go to the town Facebook page if you have comments or questions. All right, so we do have one question from, I'm gonna butcher this up, Rihanna and Alex Frost Calhoun, 20 Parker Street, number 1. Thank you all for this helpful information. This is in the group chat, by the way, if you all want to read along. There have been recent discussions around the country about decreasing spending on police departments in order to spend more on other necessary areas. Is that something that has been considered as a budget strategy for Maynard? Is that something that the Finance Committee would work on, or another committee? So I think, so I'll take a stab at this first. So I think Oh, yes, excuse me. Thank you, Alana. That's right. It was only to me as opposed to everybody. Thank you. So let me put this out to everybody. That way everybody has it, can see it. All right. That way everybody can see it. All right, I just posted it. Thank you, Alana. So let me take a first stab at this. You know, I think every town probably has its own, you know, views on what to do about the police department. And, you know, my wife and I were reading about sort of, you know, the big news is about Minneapolis taking a look, and they're actually taking a look, pretty strategic look at what calls the police are going on and whether the police are the best party to go to that. So go on those calls. So they're finding a lot of the calls actually being something that might be better taken care of by social services. And so I think, you know, in the news, there's a lot of press about, you know, defunding the police force, when in fact, I don't think that's what the city council is looking at. They're looking at taking a look at the calls and taking a look at whether the police ought to be responding to those calls or another town department. And if that's the case, then maybe we should be shifting resources around. I can't speak for the Board of Selectmen. I can't speak for the town administrator, but I would guess that here in Maynard, we feel as though you know, our police department is focused on what it needs to be focused on. I would say, in direct answer to the question, that is not something that the finance committee would work on, but that would be something more appropriately voiced to the Board of Selectmen. But again, I can't speak for the Board of Selectmen, but I'd be very surprised if they, thought that it would be a good idea to decrease spending on the police department when we already have a police department that, you know, like most of the other town departments, is operating pretty bare bones. So I'll leave it at that and open it up to any other finance committee members, or, you know, Greg, even if you wanted to take a stab at that.
Ken, it's Peter. I would just weigh in to, I mean, I do think it's something the finance committee could consider, you know, as just a town board concerned with spending. However, I, you know, do have to note, and I've seen, you know, various discussions in the news media about, you know, the police departments and how much resources go to them. The police department is about 6% of our general operating budget. So, you know, we spend something on the order of 60 to 70% on schools. So I would just note that that is the baseline. I, you know, don't see a lot of room to cut the police department, but, you know, certainly could be something that's discussed, but just want to note that as a baseline. I don't think we're devoting huge resources to the police department. So.
Thanks, Peter. Anybody else? All right, so I'll go on to the next one. So Bill Buck commented on the slide deck. Oh, great, there go our taxes. And then again, with regards to the Green Meadow roof, I don't think it's worth it, just my 2 cents. So again, I'll take an initial stab at this. You know, this isn't you know, probably simple enough to, you know, issue to sort of take care of in a single conversation. I would remind those listening of the discussions that we had last spring and on into the summer about the Green Meadow School and about the need to do renovations to the interior in order to allow our students and teachers to learn and teach in a safe environment. What wasn't taken care of at that time was the roof above it. It was felt at that time that we weren't going to take care of the roof at that time. We had we had an opportunity to take care of it in the longer term. So rather than try to take care of everything at once, we did defer that. But we all, I think, knew that we were going to defer that for only a short period of time. It's been among the discussion, here on the Finance Committee as well as others, that it would be, it would not be good stewardship of the town's resources, the Finance Committee, to not support the repairs and a replacement to the Green Meadow roof. The reality is at some point we're going to have to do that to the building. It has been a project that has been deferred, for many, many years, largely because of the budget impact. And we're just at a point where we can no longer do that. I would invite anybody who wanted to take a look. I don't remember the meeting where we had a presentation from the school committee. Certainly the school committee has also had discussions about that. But if anybody wanted to take a look at the slide deck with the pictures of the roof, the condition of the roof and so forth, there's a presentation. I'd be happy to send it out and post it. I'm guessing it's probably already posted in a number of places. But again, the Finance Committee feels very strongly that as good stewards of the town's resources and the facilities, in this case, we do need to do that. I'm not trying to minimize the impact of $16 to somebody's pocketbook, but it's $16 a year for 5 years on the average household. And so again, in order for us to carry out our responsibilities to provide a safe teaching and learning environment for our teachers and students, the Finance Committee as a whole felt very strongly. I know the school committee also felt that way, Board of Selectmen obviously as well. So this is something that those of us who have studied the various options, which could have included deferral, we feel as though it can't be deferred any longer. So with that, I'll turn it over to anyone from the Finance Committee, or for that matter, the school committee, if you all want to weigh in on this. So let's start with the Finance Committee. Anybody want to add anything to that?
I would like to say that I understand the concerns and that, we have made some mistakes, I think, in the past with letting capital go too far, the disrepair or the lack of upkeep in the past with not just this building, but others. And it can be really frustrating, I think, especially for taxpayers, when you think that things could have been prevented, maybe not gotten this far, gotten this bad, etc. That I'm hoping that the capital committee, the new capital committee, will be an asset to the town with regards to that. And I'm also hopeful that the new position of correct me if I'm wrong, the title, facilities manager for the schools, something like that. Oh, Greg knows.
Yeah, no, and it's Director of Building Operations. It's
Thank
not
you.
the Facilities Manager, because that's whatever. It's the Director of Building Operations.
Thank you. I knew I was, but that new position can also be helpful because, keeping track of equipment and building material and roofs and windows and things like that that's a specialized thing that our town, staff in the last few years at least didn't have the time or the specialized knowledge to be able to do at all times. And so I think that is a good addition. I'm hopeful that will be helpful. and hopefully we can be better in moving forward at not allowing things to go in a way where they end up costing us more than they needed to. So,
Thanks,
thank you.
Alana. I guess two things I would add. So first off, that position is not, I guess, technically a new position in the fact that we've had that position in the past, and then it was vacant for some time. But I also think it's probably important to note that we're replacing only a small portion of the Green Meadow roof. We're not replacing the entire Green Meadow roof. It was that portion that was really in a bad shape. The rest of the roof probably will eventually need to be replaced, but that is one project or one portion of the project that we deferred in order to focus on the high needs. So other Finance Committee members? Okay, anybody from these? Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I guess I just wanted to comment. It's really difficult to have a dialogue about this, given the fact that I think the gentleman that put the comment up is on Facebook. But even though it's imperfect, I think that I would very much encourage someone that thinks that this is not worth it to help us figure out how we're going to go forward with the challenges we have, and join with us to go, as Ken has alluded to the state and other places, to be able to make sure we augment funding and revenue such that we can do some of this work with a long range vision without the increase in taxes as high as we've had to go. But it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that all towns in Massachusetts are going up the 2.5%, and many have to go higher than that in order to make ends meet. And that gets doubly hard with state reducing its funding. So we are open to constructive criticism with ideas for how to help us combat this. But if I could, since it's my last couple of meetings here after 15 years of this, what I've learned after struggling with it for a very long time is that it's a very small pie that we have to work with. And taxes are a fact of life. And anybody that tells you they're going to go down year to year is not really looking at reality. And not that that's an attack on you, Mr. Buck, but I'm looking for you to come up with a constructive proposal along with others to join with this group to try to figure out how to grapple with these realities.
The importance of all revenue, including not just tax revenue, but commercial and so forth. So Lydia, you had a comment to make?
I just want to remind people that currently the 2 classrooms that are under the roof are closed, and we were not able to occupy them this past year. And unless we do something to fix the roof and ensure their stability and ability to support load bearing from potential snow storms and accumulation, that we won't be able to occupy those rooms. And it doesn't just limit our ability with the current classes we have, but one of our plans was to expand the preschool program to include at least 1, if not 2 more classrooms, so that we could increase the number of children that we service in this town and also generate more income from that. So there will be an ROI on this.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. I guess I would add to this, just to clarify, there's 2 portions of the roof being repaired. One over the 2 classrooms Lydia was talking about, and then another portion as well. It's the entire flat roof that's being done. But to Lydia's point, and very important point, particularly given the fact that we're going to need to do physical distancing in the new school year, having as much classroom space as possible is very important. So. Anyone else from the school committee or finance committee? Go ahead, Mary. Mary Brandley, you're still You're still muted.
There we go. Just took a little bit, sorry. So just concurring with what Lydia just said, and as we've talked, and Bob has been on the committee for a long time, the roof has been on the list, similar to other capital improvements, but every year, as you had even mentioned, Ken, you know, the 2.5% that we're able to get doesn't even keep the schools at where they are operationally. So every year we have to look at where we're going to spend our money. So the fact that, you know, with that portion of the building is closed, and like Lydia said, we are every year, one of the things that the school committee is really trying to do is to find other avenues for revenue. And this was a plan for going into this year to expand on the preschool program. So in fact, we could bring in more revenue, and we had to put that on hold. I'm also of the thought process that that building does have a lot of value left, and you know, who knows what the feasibility study is going to show. And I'm thinking that down the road, that building might become a combination Boys and Girls Club, senior center, or something like that. So as Alana had said, you know, we need to keep investing in that building because it does still have a life, whether or not it's the Green Meadow or we reuse it in some other capacity. It would be a shame not to invest those dollars. So that's it.
Thanks, Mary. All right, so so I don't see any other questions. Alana says there's nothing more on Facebook, and I don't see anything on my email or in the chat. So I'll give just another minute if somebody has any other questions or comments before we move to close the public hearing. So with that, I'm going to make a motion that we close the public hearing. I'd like to take a roll call vote. Bob? Oh, excuse me. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Tom seconds. Okay, so Bob?
Yes.
Lana?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
PJ?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
I also vote aye, so we'll close the public hearing. Now, I did want to give an opportunity, just a few minutes, outside of the public hearing, in case anybody had any last questions on the warrant articles. And in opening up that conversation, let me see if I can. Give me 1 second here. Sorry, folks. Clicking the wrong buttons. There we go. So I sent you all out this morning the final recommendation that I sent off to Becky for copying and inclusion in the so I'll you know, most of the things here are just routine leading up to this. I did say, let me bring this up, sorry. All right, share, here we go. All right, you all should see the, let me bump the size down here. Oops, too much. Okay, so I noted on the page that's to be included in the voter packet at town meeting. We voted to recommend to town meeting passage of all 27 articles. All the FinCom recommendations and reasons / comments are detailed in the printed warrant with the exception of our recommendation on Article 13. We, of course, had already voted to recommend, and then we put together at the last meeting. Obviously, I did a little bit of rewording to provide some additional information. Basically, passage would adopt a proposed budget of 44,975,000, et cetera. I did include the statement about breakdown of 9 major town functions, the table above, which shows how the budget is be allocated to various purposes, is in line with prior town budgets. I added here a standard statement we'd used in the past, that we believe the proposed balance, budget balances revenues and expenditures, addresses the priorities established by the Board of Selectmen and School Committee in consultation with the town administrator and FinCom. And then I referred them to Appendix A. Then I brought in the comment here that we made, as is the case for every town across the Commonwealth. Our budget has substantial uncertainties given the yet unknown financial impacts of COVID-19 pandemic on the Massachusetts state budget. Talked about the town budget subcommittee, which will continue to monitor and assess the impact of potential reductions in state and local aid on the town budget. If there are significant reductions at the state level, it will likely necessitate changes to the town's general expense budget, general expense fund budget, which would be revisited and voted on the fall special town meeting in October. And that we would provide information recommendation about these impacts. We'd share that as data becomes available. So I did include as space allowed because I really, we needed to keep this to 2 pages, 1 sheet front and back. I made note of the trends, including the financial impact of COVID-19, funding for the Maynard Public Schools, capital projects, including new fire stations. Geez. Small typo there. That's all I need.
Yep.
What? New fire stations? Water sewer infrastructure, increasing tax revenue through growth, recreational marijuana.
There's another typo there.
And where's that?
E. Increased tax revenue through growth. There a number of proposed.
Okay. Can you tell me where we are?
E.
Oh, E, sorry.
Increase tax revenue through growth. There a number of proposed.
There are, thank you. All right. All right, thank you. Okay, so with that, make those changes then.
Since you've gone, Ken, this is Bob actually. Since you've gone into this detail, and I don't want to make it longer, but is there anything to be said here about recreational marijuana and other things like Royal Bayesian School and others, even though we don't know numbers or magnitudes, or just leave it this way?
Yeah, so that's a great point. I guess I felt that recreational marijuana was a little bit closer to, beyond sort of a dream, not dream. We've actually have a process in place. We've got licensing going on, yep. Whereas the Beijing Royal School, that's something certainly that we do need to bring into the larger discussion as we lead up to October, a special town meeting. So thanks for noting that. Any other comments? So with that, are there any other questions from anybody on the call relative to the any of the warrant articles. I did just want to give people a chance to weigh in. We had a pretty wide-ranging discussion. All right, hearing none. Just make sure there's nothing on my email. All right. Nothing in the chat box. Okay, with that, we'll move on. Let's see here. Before we sort of leave this, Greg, at recent meetings, I think including the last one, you and Mike, and I see Mike is coming on now, had talked about some scenario planning that you were doing. Is that at a point where you'll be sharing that with us, maybe at our June 22nd meeting, or is that something more likely to happen after the, after July 1?
No, we are developing it and we're getting close. My plan was to introduce it to the budget subcommittee meeting, which is June 24th, tentatively scheduled. I may be able to have something for you by the 22nd, but the 24th budget subcommittee that was kind of my target date for having what I was ideally, we want to have both a reflection of projections of FY21 along with recommendations for addressing that shortfall. But obviously that's easier said than done, based on all the conversation you've already alluded to this evening due to the size of the budget and balancing efforts that's already been conducted at length just to get through the budget where we were, just to go into the fiscal year for June 13th for the town meeting. So further adjustments are going to be challenging. I have directed the departments to see if whatever cost saving measures they can come up with. Ideally, I would obviously want their take first before Mike and I really start going down each budget to see where we can come up with the money to identify that shortfall. We do have scenarios, and that's what you asked, Ken. We do have a couple of scenarios of what that shortfall may be. We know meals tax has been down. We haven't had the meals tax. Excise taxes will be down. And state aid is another big, as you've already alluded to, we don't know what the state aid number is going to be. So we're going to come up with a couple of different scenarios, which we already have, and see how we can kind of somehow come up with budget adjustments to meet those scenarios, and do the best we can. We'll plan for the worst and hope for the best, because additionally, as all those points of potential revenue, and it's even alluded to in your town meeting document, that's the other side of the coin. Is there's uncertainties when it comes to how much revenue we won't have that we budgeted for, but there's also uncertainties when it comes to revenue that we will have that we didn't budget for. So
yeah. So I guess I'm sort of open to the idea that, special town meeting is in October, but you, of course, are going to be looking for recommendations from us on any new budget. And, there's a timeline, we could certainly bring that up if we wanted to, but I guess the point is that in the August timeframe, we're going to need to start having some serious discussions on where things are.
I think it'll be sooner than that. I'm sorry, can I just, but it'll be sooner than that. Because so here's my sort of approach is June 24th or wherever the budget subcommittee meeting, I sort of pitch the big ideas, but the budget subcommittee they're not a policy making group. They're just like a good sounding board for me. Then the first thing I have to do is introduce any policy recommendations to the people I report to, the Board of Selectmen. But those conversations should inform and I want to say it's July 14th, which is the tentative date for the next tri-board meeting or joint budget review. And that's where I suspect a good amount of deliberation will occur amongst all, the stakeholders, which will continue to inform how that budget may be, the supplemental budget, as I like to call it, how the revised FY21 budget may be developed.
So we had talked about having a tri-board, and of course, that's full finance committee, board of selectmen, school committee on July 14th, or I guess the 28th was the other date that you had provided. Have we settled on the 14th as being a date?
No, it wasn't settled. No, I don't believe it was determined yet, but that was.
Yeah. So I don't know that, I don't know that, I'd have to look back. I know I reached out to the finance committee members about those dates. But I probably ought to revisit that. And then the town budget subcommittee, which is subcommittee of those three boards, you said is June 24th.
That's the date that I proposed, and Justine St.
Okay.
John, well, I'm sure will be sending invites
Okay.
to the chair. Yeah.
So we should expect to have a discussion on the scenarios at either the July 13th or July 27th, and probably both finance committee meetings. So those would be the, otherwise, because you said sooner than August, so that
Right.
that would be the timing of that.
We'll have to be, as you said, we have to be developing those articles.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, inputs from the finance committee? So hearing none, so I think we can, the next thing is to talk about communications. So at this point, obviously, communications is really around, as Greg alluded to earlier, making sure that people show up for town meetings. So I would certainly ask you through your discussions with, I think there's still, a fairly large element, despite the reverse 911 and everything that's on the town page. I think there's still an element, a large portion of the town Maynard community that does not, it hasn't really sunk in that town meeting is this Saturday. And so I'd really would ask you to, sort of reach out to your friends and ask them to show up. I think it'll be an interesting experience. But in any case, obviously, it's important that we hold town meeting to conduct the town's business. Certainly there's city councils where you have a city council that makes the decision, representative town meetings where the representative town meeting makes the decisions, but we have still an open town meeting, which allows us to have a direct impact. Mary, I saw your hand there. Did you have a comment?
Yep, I just wanted to remind, I think Greg, we were talking about doing a reverse 911. And Greg, if you could maybe do it tomorrow and direct people to the town of Maynard, the website, because I thought, like you said earlier, you did a great job as far as putting all the details, but I had so many people ask about it, and that I think, sooner versus later would be great to do a reverse 911.
We did one on Thursday. Wait, no, we were planning on doing another one, and so you're right, Mary. Like we got it.
I always get them, and I didn't get that one. So.
Yeah. So we're gonna do it again. You're right.
All right.
You're not on the list, Mary.
I thought I was on the list twice, but at home and on my phone, on my smartphone, but I guess not.
No. I actually listened to the whole call, and even though I knew about it, and still listened. Interestingly, Greg, I would tell you that on my readout, the caller ID readout, it says spam ? Town of Maynard.
Yes, on mine too.
Yeah. So.
Well, then please take us off your spam list.
No. Well, no. I think it's
an automated thing.
I think it's internal to Verizon that they look at these automated things, and so. So I will just say, when of course I listen to them because I figure Town of Maynard probably isn't sending out spam, but it gets labeled as spam. Apparently, Alana has the same thing.
Because
Yeah,
don't know if any-
I also have Verizon, and it's a newish thing. The new like spam
Yeah.
question mark, and then it still shows you the name of where it's coming from. But yeah, it unfortunately seems to have tagged when the reverse 911 call from Maynard.
Oh,
I don't
bummer.
know.
Because
know.
I think they do that with all robocalls,
Yeah,
so to speak.
because there are scams that then I don't know how they do it, but there are scams where scammers can make their IDs pop up as the town of whatever.
I don't know if there's anything that your robocall company can do
I don't know.
to talk to Verizon about changing that, but it's worth thinking about.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Also, the
So
note when it comes up for AT&T, it doesn't even have the phone number. It just says spam. So I never answered.
Great.
And we're getting another message again from Alex Frost Calhoun that it says scam likely on T-Mobile.
Great.
I know. You guys do such a good job with those calls. I'm really sorry.
All right. The voice
Yeah.
of Maynard, Stephanie Duggan, she does a great job. And so I don't know what we can do, but we'll see.
Well, so as Jill said, Alex was kind enough to say that it comes up as spam likely or scam likely on T-Mobile.
Great.
So apparently it's everybody. So I don't know what to at least with Verizon it says Town of Maynard, and I know to answer the call.
Sure.
So anyway, you might want to think about what to do about that. All your good work to do reverse 911.
I don't know.
So any other ideas on communications between now and town meeting? All right, go ahead.
Chairman, and I apologize because I have to what the agenda is. You're on communications. All right, so because maybe this is a little late, but the selectmen did accept the recommendation to withdraw an article. So it's not 27 articles; it's 26 now.
Yeah.
It's that article is moved, which was taking of easements for the Florida Road Bridge project.
Right.
It's 26 articles.
I think we talked about that last time. So, I mean, until it's still going to be mentioned at town meeting and withdrawn, right? Yeah. Okay. Right. All right. Looking at the next finance committee meeting, which is June 22nd. I guess we'll do an after action on the town meeting and start to prep for a special town meeting. We'll also need to start prepping for the beginning of the year. And of course, I've already, as we all remember, our first meeting in July is called by the moderator. And so he will open the meeting and ask for nominations for our officers. And so we'll be electing a chair and a secretary and a vice chair at that meeting. So please be thinking about what role that you all might want to take on. And is there anything else that we need to do for the June 22nd or July 13th Finance Committee meetings? We will have end of year transfers, but it's looking like that'll be the 27th because they'll be voted on by the Board of Selectmen on the 14th. I think Greg and I see Mike's on as well. As I said, we can certainly exercise some flexibility if necessary. Pardon me. All right, anything else before we proceed to close? PJ, do I have a motion?
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tom seconds. All those in favor, I'll do a roll call vote. Bob?
That wasn't me. Yes. I don't know what that was.
Okay, Alana,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
PJ,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. So we close this evening's meeting at 8:40 p.m. Okay,
Ooh,
thank
a
you
record.
all. Well, if it's not a record, it sure is close to a record. And thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for your participation in this evening's meeting. Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
All right, thanks.
Thanks. Good night.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
Good night.